Josh, how are we feeling right now? If you're excited and it's been a good day for you so far, can we all say Raga? Thank you. That creates a ripple right there. All right. So the mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions. A quote by Ralph Emerson. Awesome people, sparkling coaches, and future change makers. I have a question for you. What does it truly take to evolve from being a leader to becoming a transformational force? What comes to mind? Our next speaker is someone who's not only navigated this journey, but has redefined what it means to lead in an era of disruption. From being a CHRO to a COO, and then stepping into the CEO's shoes, his spectacular story is one of learning, unlearning, and ever evolving. Outside his profession, he's a voracious reader, reads 1 book a week, 52 books a year. And that there is just a superpower for me at least. He believes in the idiom, change is the only constant. He's been through 7 schools in 12 years. He's passionate about coaching as a leadership style. 7 of his erstwhile team members are now CHROs. And that intuitively throws another quote to me. The growth and development of people is the highest calling of the leadership, by Harvey Firestone. So ladies and gentlemen, amongst thunderous applause, may you please put your hands together to invite the next speaker on board, the insightful, the inspiring, Mr. Amit Malik. Round of applause, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Kenneth, for the energy. Thank you, everyone, for choosing to stay back. I understand all of you had a choice, so I hope I will make your next 45 minutes count. Thank you, ICF, Delhi NCR chapter, for giving me the opportunity to come here and share my thoughts. Thank you, Krishnan, my dear friend, and the team, Suparna, Kenneth is there, for making this happen, right? I'm going to keep it short. How we're going to play it is I'm going to give you some of my thoughts for the next 10, 15 minutes. Then we'll have Suparna ask me some questions, and then we'll open it up for the audience. So that's the flow. We'll surely be done in 45 minutes. I won't stand between you and lunch. Okay, let's start. Year 2013, a young HR head is nominated to be a part of a global cohort at said business school, Oxford University. It's a leadership course, advanced leadership course, which typically has a lot of business guys, but very few HR sprinkled here and there. A 1-year program, and 2 people from India are nominated to be a part. Those 2 are given coaches for their 1-year journey. This individual gets a coach based out of Bangalore, and the other individual gets a coach based out of Delhi. You know, in those times, neither coaching was fashionable as it is today, and nor we had Zoom or Teams to do a video conferencing as we could do today. So the only option to do coaching was on a speakerphone of a landline. WhatsApp calling was just not in. Well, though excited to have a coach, this individual's still very apprehensive of how would it work, right? How much can you share on a speakerphone of a landline in your office or from your home with someone who you've never met or never seen other than a photograph, right? So that's how it was. But worked it did, right? And it worked so well that this individual then decided to embark on his own self-coaching journey, and in 2015 was certified an ICF coach, right? When still coaching was not fashionable and neither being coach was. So the coachee you would have guessed was me. And I think that intervention, that 1-year period, was very, very impactful, and it changed me both as a professional and also as a person. That was the impact. I continue to remain in touch with my coach, even though the formal engagement ended after a year. And I still schedule sessions with her. And the way I pay her back is if she's in town, I buy her dinner. If I'm in Bangalore, I buy her dinner. In my journey from CHRO to CEO to CEO, I think that intervention played a very, very important role. It gave me courage to ask myself some questions and made me realize that there are some paths in my life, in my career, that I had not considered till that time, but I should definitely explore. I think that was the awakening, that was my aha moment during that whole journey which was there. Being a coach, I personally feel, is a very strong weapon to have in your arsenal as a leader. It's no longer a speciality. The way the times have changed, it's a requirement for a good leader to be a good coach. When I transitioned from multiple roles, I realized that being a coach and a leader, or a leader who focuses on coaching, made me a better listener, made me a keen observer, and equipped me with the sense to ask the right questions. All of these traits gave people their comfort to speak up and share their knowledge, kind of giving them a psychological safety as I transitioned and learned new aspects of the jobs that I'd taken. I've personally learned that when your team can speak without fear of being judged, you are doing something right as a leader. And I think to give that confidence to the team that you are not judging you comes as a trait of being a coach, where you give your coachee that whole feeling that the coachee is not being judged. So how do you play that? There are times when I had to self-coach myself, on focusing on what I did not have to do or what I should not do in each of the roles that I transcended. It's tough to go against something which comes very naturally to you, to go against your own grain. But that's when you understand the value of change and you acknowledge it. One of the examples that I must share is when I became the CEO, I realized that I have to speak the last. Because if as a CEO you spoke first, then you have spoken. Only what you get is nodding heads or people trying to tell you why your call is the right call. You cease to hear the divergent views, or you cease to have people challenge. Very rarely you will have people who will challenge you, which is what you need as part of the discussion. And that was a very difficult trait to, kind of pull myself back on, when I was an individual who would very openly, right at the outset, share my views. I started to focus on my ask to tell ratio, right? Something that my friend Krishnan also believes very much in. Asking myself, am I saying more or am I listening more? Or what percentage of my time in a meeting do I focus on listening? Some of the personal metrics that I tracked. And again, when you have a growth mindset, when you want to grow, you have to listen more to what people have to say. You know what you have, but it's, how you learn from the others, I think, is a key trait for someone who has a growth mindset. One of the things that one must remember, that as a CEO, when you run a business, you are not just operating in a market. You are operating in a geopolitical environment where you have absolutely no control on how things can change overnight. One election, one new legislation, one technological development, or a super innovation is enough to impact your business plan, your short-term, your long-term numbers, your financials, your product roadmap. And I can go on and on, but I think you get the idea. But all these events are outside-in events. Even as a CEO, there are inside-out events that you have to focus on. Key attrition, war for talent, failed product, a bad sales quarter, leadership change at the global headquarters, which just topsy-turvy, does the topsy-turvy thing to your own financial plans. Customer issues gone viral, one cybersecurity breach, happens very commonly in today's world. All this and much more is what a CEO or a CXO has to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And if dealing this was not enough, people ask you the question as a CEO, what keeps you awake at night? But that's when you need a coach. For it's very lonely at the top. CEO also needs someone to share their deepest fears and deepest anxieties. Some CHROs perform that role very well, where they can be a coach and a counselor and a consigliere to the CEO. But typically a CEO needs somebody. I became a better professional post-coaching because I learned to deal with my personal demons. And I think it's important for each leader to be able to get to that stage where you are able to separate your personal demons with your professional anxieties. As CEOs, many times you have all the data. You need to make a decision, you have everything that you need. Everyone's fed you information, market information, product information. Yet what is missing at that time is that self-belief to take a call. And that's when you need somebody to talk things out. You're not looking for someone to make a decision for you. You're looking at someone to talk things out and share your anxieties and your fears and get over that mentally in your own mind. And that's where a coach comes in. All of you present here, I'm sure, have your own definition of a coach, of who is a coach. Let me share what's my definition of a coach, since we are in a coaching conclave. Coach is someone who makes you aware, who makes you feel, who makes you hear yourself, who makes you ask, and finally, who makes you raise the bar for yourself. That's my definition of a coach. You can disagree with that. Now, each leader has a leadership style. How does that style fit and reflect the spirit of coaching is entirely dependent on the leader and the self-awareness that that leader has. As a leader today, one has to look at, when you look at the organization, you deal with an intergenerational workforce, right? Late baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. We are already talking about Gen Alpha, right? That's going to step in. And gone are the days when one size fits all, When I joined the workforce in 99, if your boss said something, his boss said something, his super boss said something, that was the cardinal truth. But gone are the days today. You can stand in a town hall and say something as a CEO or a CXO, but it's not going to be enough. So I think, like a good leader, a good coach, a good leader, they have to ensure a relationship that is more adult to adult and not parent to child. And that all of you would have heard of, which is easier. But the bigger problem is a child to a parent relationship. And I say this today because we have young leaders who are going to manage teams with senior members in their teams. And that's when the team member starts to see a child to a parent relationship. It's not the child who sees that. And that's where the challenge comes in. And that's where in coaching you have to be, or a leadership, you have to be very, very cognizant of that, as to how do you deal with that relationship, or how do you help people who are in teams with young leaders deal that relationship, as coaches, as HR leaders, as someone who wants the organization to succeed. Well, it's a stupid question to ask, but I'm sure everyone has a phone today, right? A mobile phone. Periodically, we all get updates on our phones. Since I'm an Apple user, I'll talk about the iOS update. If you have a question, why am I an Apple user? My kids also have that question, saying, why don't you move to Android? But that's for another day. So, when you get the upgrade at iOS, it's 16, it's 16.1, 16.1.1, 16.2, 16.2.2, 16.7, 16.7.7. You don't get an upgrade that is 16 from 17, which only happens once a year. It doesn't happen every year. But the periodic updates come smaller ones. That's because they are fixing the bugs. They are doing the small tweaking to the update that has already come in, right? Similarly, each and individual of your operating systems should not wait for the big upgrade. Are you waiting for that big upgrade to happen after 12 months, after 18 months, or are you doing that regularly in your own personal life? We have to be practically keeping to upgrade our own operating systems to become a better leader and a better coach on a daily basis. That's how you have a growth mindset. That's how you want to be coaching for growth if you have a coachee. That's how, as a leader, you want to be growing. Coming to existing and emerging coaches, I assume most of you present here are in one of those categories. Either you are an existing coach, or you're an emerging coach, or you're an aspiring coach, like my friend Virender here, right, who's aspiring to be a coach. That's why you are here today. You are in a profession that has the power to change the course of individual careers. And when you change the course of individual careers, you impact the course of the organizations where those people work. That's a huge responsibility to have. But let me tell you, we need more coaches. There are not enough coaches that we have today. Talking about this and talking about your aspiration and wanting to be a coach or already a coach, it's good to be coaching a CEO or a CXO or a senior level people. It's absolutely fine to have that kind of clientele. But I have a request. Please don't limit yourself to that. There are people I meet who say, I'm a coach, but you know what, I only coach the CEOs or I only coach the CXOs. And the question that I have to myself is, it's good, but why the only? It's good to have that clientele in your repertoire, but why only? Right. I think my request to you today is please expand your list across the organization workforce, and then you will see how you grow as a coach. I personally do that. I personally have, every year I take 2 youngsters who I coach on a pro bono basis, right, who are anywhere between 3 years to 7 years to 8 years of their career, right, and I'm surprised by how much I learn from them. And similarly, they will surprise you in the challenging conversations that they can have with you as a coach. If coaching has to bring a long-lasting change, coaches have to begin to look at middle managers and young leaders, because they are the future of the organization. That's how the change will be long-lasting. And let me tell you, there's a different challenge when you turn a mediocre talent into a high potential by virtue of your intervention. Right? It's a different high. The other area that organizations need to focus on, and some have started to do a little bit, is team coaching. Teams typically thrive on trust and collaboration, but it's not easy to achieve. And that's one area where I think every organization needs an intervention. So if you are a coach and if you want to really diversify, I will urge you to look at that area of team coaching if you've not already done that. Lastly, I'm going to be a little provocative here, even though I know I'm in a coaching conclave. When I say I'm a coach, I'm always asked, are you ACC or PCC? Right. That's the question you will get. I get 9 out of 10 times. Personally, it's good to have those certifications, right? It brings confidence in your client. It gets you better assignment, right? You can charge more. I agree to all of that, right? Because coaching is not charity. But my ask of you today is to focus on credibility. Please help the coaches deal effectively with the real world problems. And you can only do that if you are aware of the ecosystem that your coachee is operating on, irrespective of the level that the coachee is. Are you equipped to have a conversation with your coachee where you can address the issues that your coachee has not thought of or would get impacted by tomorrow? So are you staying one step ahead of your coachee's domain and field as a coach? That's the challenge that I want to throw to you. And the other challenge is, like I said, we need more coaches, so please develop more coaches, right? Help people in that coaching journey. In the end, as they say in Star Wars, I will say, may the force be with you. Thank you once again for having me here today, and I'm open to taking some questions. I finished in 15?
Well done, Amit. 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I think first of all, I'd like to thank you for your very candid and heartwarming and inspiring talk about your professional journey. I think this is landing very well with the audience here. The value for coaching in the industry, recognizing that and amplifying that on a platform like this. I think let's hear it from the audience. 3 cheers for Amit as an industry leader.
Thank you.
Now, with your permission and taking advantage of your appetite for authenticity and vulnerability, can I put you in the hot seat?
Do I have a choice?
Frankly, no, at this moment.
Then let's go. Yeah.
Okay, so for all the success and accomplishments, it is considered, and by professors in premium international business schools like Manfred de Vries, who's a professor of organizational behavior at NCR, that narcissism is often seen as a driving force behind the desire to obtain a leadership position. Do you believe that to be true?
Very interesting. Actually, I'll flip it across and say narcissism starts to develop when you get a leadership position. Before that, it's ambition. Ambition drives you to get there, and once you get there, you start to become narcissist. Look at an Elon Musk or a Mark Zuckerberg today. And I'm taking this example because this is in public domain. Right. They were not narcissists till they became an Elon and a Mark. Right. When Zuckerberg started Facebook in the dorm, he was not narcissist. He had an ambition to make the biggest social platform in the world. Or Elon had the ambition to make Tesla or make SpaceX and make space travel cheap. But today they are narcissists when you look at their exchange on X where they're asking each other to come and fight in a cage. And I'll not go beyond as to what they are challenging on sizes and everything, but that's on public domain. So that's what I feel.
Well, there are psychoanalysts who believe that there are certain personality types who are more prone to these grandiose delusions.
Yes, there are personality types who are, but I think you need, that's what I said. The way, how does your ambition translate for you to be able to then manifest this is the point. If you are not successful and you are a narcissist, it doesn't matter because no one's going to listen to you. No one's going to care about what you say. And that's what feeds into a personality that is that.
So some of the most powerful personalities in the world are in these positions of power. And would coaching, in your opinion, be something with which they can come to some kind of a reality check?
Coaching, in my way, coaching only works when the other person is coachable.
All right.
Is ready to be coached. Yes, you may have an unwelcome coachee, but you can always turn an unwelcome coachee who is a visitor to be a permanent member of the session. You can do that, and that's the power of coaching. But there has to be certain amount of willingness to coach. Can someone coach Elon Musk? I'd really love who'd be an Elon Musk coach. Right? I'd really love to see that person who puts up his hand and says, I'd coach Elon Musk, or a Mark Zuckerberg. Sheryl Sandberg tried to play that role in his life, whatever little I've read of, play that role in his life of a mentor, of a guide, not a coach, but a guide, and set up the business. But it's very interesting. But yeah, there are people who have it. There are people who've asked for it. The Google CEO Eric Schmidt had a coach for a long, long time because he wanted to be coachable. And if you read their journey together, it's very, very eye-opening, right? If you look at Google, the Google founders got Eric because they were told that you needed someone senior to come and guide you at the time when they were growing and they wanted to sell themselves to Yahoo for $1 million or $1 billion, which never happened. But that's where you need people to guide you. Yeah, but you have to have that some part of willingness to say, even though I don't like it, but I'll enter the room. If you're not entering the room, then how will the coach help you, is my question.
It's very interesting. Thank you for your answer. Now, coming to the point where you said that you are such an avid reader and there are 52 books in a year for you to read. Why do you read so voraciously? What are you looking for?
Okay. See, how I started to read was I'm a Fauji kid, right? My father would get posted into cantonments where you had nothing but library and a ground. So how do you spend your time in summer vacations? We didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook, right? We didn't even have friends who were outside your whole thing, and you only came to your grandparents' place once a year, right? And going on vacations was not an option. So that's how I got into reading. Why I read 52 books a year? I think as a leader, you always have to be relevant. You always have to know what's happening around, right? And also, so that's one part of why I read, and I don't only read all Gyan-wali books, let me tell you. I read everything on the spectrum from trash to science fiction to fiction to Jeffrey Archer to everything that I would read on an AI. But I think that's where you start. It's my own quest for knowing more. Also, it's my safe space, right? I like to take a book, sit, read, spend that 30 minutes with me, myself, and I read across paperback, Kindle, audio. I don't differentiate or discriminate. I'm very inclusive. But yeah, that's my, and also, how, as a leader, I think I feel the most important trait that you have when we talk about growth mindset is how relevant you are and how contemporary you are with the times as they change. And I think that's where the quest for knowledge is. And it's not about reading books. I think I've known of people who consume content on YouTube, who consume content on articles, who consume content on, journals. It's how you consume content. I consume it through books primarily, but what is important is how you consume content. I think that's important. And I don't mean the India Got Latent show, by the way.
Your 52 books is a bomb in this audience, which prides itself for reading a lot. And I think what's coming as a surprise is that you read a lot of fiction, which is, I think there's a danger as coaches, we do a lot of reading on self-development, personal development, leadership development. I don't know, how many coaches here read fiction anymore?
Yeah, no, I'm not the only one.
No. Interesting. Okay, so Ahmed, then coming to the very typical question, for all the books that you've read, which ones would you like to share with the audience today in the context of coaching?
Before I come to that, I'll tell you a story. My kids, I have two boys turning 20 and 17 this February, and they also read like me. And I read young adult because they got me into reading young adult. My elder one, when he was 17, came up to me and said, there is this book that I think you should read. It's called Aristotle and Dante. It's a 2-book series. I don't know if they've read it. It's about two people, two boys who fall in love with each other. But it's very, very, and he told me, he said, I think, Dad, you should read this book. And I read that book and I realized it's a great book on parenting of if you have kids who are LGBTQI oriented. It's not about those two people. It's about how parents deal with that situation. And it's an amazing book if you are a parent and if you are in that situation. So, that's why I'm saying across genres, you can take your learnings from the books. Coming back to the...
It's a very interesting answer because I think, and we will come to this question down the line about multi-generational workforce and how to, bridge the gap. We'll pause this
sure.
here.
On the books?
On the favorites, yes.
On the favorites, well, it's like asking me which of my fingers. I read 52
For
books
this
a year.
audience, in this hour, in this
So if
moment.
you were to read a book, I'll be very cliched and say, what got you here will not get you there. I think that's a book that I've read 3 times in my life, and I still would want to read it every time. Every time I read that book, I discovered something new, and I associated myself, which I was not doing or I was starting to do, but that's an easy one. The other book that if you want to read is Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. I don't know how many of you have read it.
Hard Things About Hard Change.
Hard Things About Hard Things.
Oh, okay.
Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Oh.
It's a very interesting book. It's about how do you deal with failures, how do you deal with decisions where you have to change the course of your organization. So it talks about that. It talks a lot about culture. It talks a lot about teams. It talks a lot about leadership. That's one. If you are into autobiographies, then my favorite is Open by Andre Agassi. I don't know how many of you have read it. But if you have, it's a brilliant book. One of the very few autobiographies where Agassi has been as vulnerable as he could be, from his journey of being number 1 to 99 and then being number 1, his feelings towards his father that he could actually kill him, to his drugs, to his affairs with Brooke Shields. It's one of those books that really, that talk to you about the power of being vulnerable. So yeah, those are the ones. But otherwise, on my LinkedIn, I do a blog every year, top 10 books of the year. You are more than welcome to go and read that. It's got books from 2020 till 2024, so it's been 5 years now. And I do my top 10 books of the year that I read, so very happy for you to look at.
Very fascinating shares, Amit. Now, coming to the question on bridging the gap and managing a multi-generational workforce. And I think earlier we started the session with Magda. Magda spoke about how being a leader to inspire, what do you rally such a diverse 6 to 7 generations, was it, Magda? 6 to 7 generations, how do you unite them? And just in this context, like the great debate, and there's a lot of obsession over what Gen Zs want, and of course, the way Gen X and the earlier generations are seen as being rigid and being insensitive and full of biases, and we think that Gen Zs are obsessed with social media, digital natives, and they're entitled. So how do we bridge the gap?
See, it depends on what's your starting point. You first have to reflect within before you reflect outside. That's my view. Right. What worked for me when I started my career in 99 didn't work when in 2009, wouldn't work in 2029. Let's take it that way, right? Yeah. So am I reflecting myself enough to change? That's where it starts. Second is about being accepting. Keep the judgment out of it and accept and try to go beyond what is said. Even as an HR professional, you are taught that to say, go beyond the need. It's just that, go beyond the statement, go beyond what is being said to understand why that is being said. I think that's a good starting point. And why only at workplace? You have to do it at home also, right? I don't have the same relationship with my boys like I had with my father, or I have with my father even today, right? And if we are as a parent, if we are adopting that change and we are trying to be more open at home, and we are listening more, why will we not carry those traits to the workforce and do the same for the same generation that's working for us? How is it different the way I deal with my 20-year-old to I would deal someone who's at 28, 29 at my workplace? Right. May not be my child, but the dealing and the acceptance has to be the same, and that's what is needed, and I think that's where it is. Also, this whole myth about saying Gen Z are very selfish or self-centered or they only think about themselves, I don't believe in that myth. I don't think that's the point. I think they have an opinion, and as long as you listen to their opinion and you try and give them an understanding of why they are saying it, that's what they are asking for. Right? Everyone wants to be. See, the times have changed. People want to be heard today. People want to be seen today. People want to be recognized today. That's why you have a Twitter or an X, or an Instagram, right? And that's at the workplace also.
So this makes a great case for the coaching competencies, which is listening, which is at the heart of a coaching conversation, and that ask-to-tell ratio, where we are not, telling people so much. So even as parents, then maybe this is the kind of ripple effects of coaching in societies, in our families. I mean, of course, the workplace. Yeah?
Correct. I agree. And that's why I think that's why I've always said, if you have to be a good leader, coaching is something that you need to equip yourself with. Whether you are, it doesn't matter whether you are PCC, ACC, or whatever. As long as you get the basics of coaching right, you can do that. And you don't need to be certified also. You could have be experienced enough to be a good coach. Certification is good to have, but it's not the end all and be all. Right.
Great call out, I think, on the caste system in coaching. Okay, and with this, I would like to open the Q&A to the audience and invite whoever wants to ask a question. Dr. Sita, right away.
Yeah. I don't need the mic.
Sure.
Hi, Amit.
Yeah.
My question to you as a CEO is that you are aware of coaching is very required, and we in this hall will all agree that coaching is a requirement for everyone. So how do CEOs make sure everybody gets coaching in the organization despite the cost? The ways of lowering the cost?
Well, you have a CHR who should do something, right? I agree. On the side. No, I think it's not about how the CEOs ensure that everyone gets coaching. See, you have to. It cannot be one glove that fits all, right? If you say I'm going to have all my 300 middle managers being coached, is not the answer. That's on the other extreme. You have to be very, very careful about who needs coaching and who needs that intervention and why is that needed. People could be at the stage of their career where they may not need coaching at that stage. They may need something else. So I think it's very easy. It's very important to distinguish who needs coaching. A CEO may have 10 direct reports. To say all 10 direct reports need coaching is not the answer, even though you may have the money to be able to spend on coaching for all 10 of them. It depends on out of those 10, how many need coaching and what do they need coaching for. And I'm being very pragmatic here to say, when you have to look at it, there are some who are high potential, there are some who have already reached the peak of their career but are great to do that. So you have to start to distinguish what intervention will work for whom, and coaching is just one of those interventions that is there for the CEO to consider. Some people may not need coaching, they may need advanced education. Right. So you send them to an IIM or to somewhere to do an advanced education. Someone may need something else to bring up their skills. And I think that's what is important, and that's what is also important for the CHROs to be able to differentiate. Because sometimes we get so lured and say, "Acha, theek hai, is saal ka, we have this year's target, 20 people to be coached, so we will take all 20 high potentials and coach them through, and that's the metrics that we have achieved." But that's not the answer. All 20 may not need, and that's where you have unwelcome coaches who really don't think they need a coaching.
Coaching could also be personal, it's not just professional. Richard Branson said beautifully, train them so that they leave you. Treat them so well, they don't leave you.
I agree, but treating is not equal to coaching. Treating them well is not equal to coaching. That's my point. And second, I personally get confused with this life coach, relationship coach. Someone sent me a message last week on Insta saying, "Do you need an Insta coach?" That is a fact. You need an Insta coach. And I was like, oh my God, that's a new one now. Right. So yes, so I think what I'm trying to say is it's important for you to identify what you need, and if coaching is needed, then by all means the CEO should invest, because that's when you're investing with a certain objective. Also remember, the CEO is responsible to the board. If I as a CEO go and say, you know what, I have 10 direct reports, I'm going to have all of them coached by no matter how good the coach is, but that's not the solution.
All right. Thank you, Amit. First, not a simple answer, and it's an interesting question. We have Vivek there. He wants to ask a question.
So I have a question for you, Amitji, which is, like you mentioned this thing about credentialing, right? One thing I've noticed is, so I have the fortune of knowing a lot of very, very good coaches who are very young. So they have limited experience in the corporate world and have not been directors, VPs, and all of those things. So now, when, say, for example, execs and other people are looking for coaches, they tend to look for people who have done what they have done or who have coached people like them already. While in reality, I've found that these young coaches, when given the chance, can do an excellent job, and sometimes not being in that domain is almost an advantage. What advice do you have, if any, for these kinds of coaches to kind of make their break or get their first few clients in that rung, so to speak?
See, in the end, it's a coach's call. So I'd rather address this question to the coaches and say, don't go to someone who's similar to you. You know, you are not, that's the first red herring that I would have if you have a coach who's very similar to you. Right, because then then what is going to be reflected back to you is what you're already thinking. So you are reinforcing what you already know, but you may not be challenged enough to look at a different perspective. And you go to a coach to be challenged enough to be looking at different perspectives, right? So that's where my point is. But yeah, you are right. This is the problem with a lot of people who will say, oh, I'll find a similar structured person, similar in profile, and you'd be a fit. You are not looking to be a fit as a coach and a coach. It's not a hand and glove relationship. It's okay to have a little different sizes, because a little bit of discomfort in a coaching relationship is good sometimes for the relationship itself, because that's when you start to challenge and discover, right? So yes, I think that's a question that the coaches have to be very, very aware of, and the people who are advising them to take coaching should say that. I have nothing against, I personally agree with you. It doesn't matter what your age is, what your background is, as long as you're a good, effective coach. Because what you need to be a good, effective coach doesn't come with your experience or your qualifications. It comes with how you are in a coaching conversation. Yes, experience always helps. I'm not saying that a 30-year person who's a coach will not bring that. Everyone brings a different dimension. That should not be the end-all and be-all. Your LinkedIn profile is not the only thing you should look at when you decide on a coach.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you. Great question, Vivek. Excellent answer, Amit, because I think you're calling out something which is like, the blind spots could be very similar if you're looking for the same person. And to this, actually, I would invite Magdalena, please give us your views on this.
I wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely. Blind spots are real. And blind spots could be from the perspective of being in certain position. Blind spots could be from the perspective of being in the same field. And to your point, sometimes the innocence of the person who's coming from outside, it's like a child. They ask the best questions, right? They leave you speechless. And they are simple questions. So ability, there is also a research indicating that we tend to choose people who are similar to us, that people that we feel comfortable around. That comfort may actually exclude the challenge that it's absolutely necessary in my opinion, in a coaching relationship. So I agree with you that this is a choice of a coachee. We are not supposed to impose coaches. They have a choice. But I got back for the second to the Rice University. They are actually experimenting with that and doing research, precisely saying that, I think, so again, control group and other group. Control group can choose their own coaches. The other group is being assigned coaches by the panel, like of 3 of their faculty and professors, because they say, I think that they need a nudge here. I think they need somebody being so different that their thinking will be challenged. And I think that's going to be fascinating to see. I am a coach junkie. I love working with different coaches, and every single one brings a different dimension for myself and also for understanding coaching.
Magdalena Mook, thank you so much for that very real perspective, and something which we might want to bring into our conversations when the coach-coachee matching happens in the industry. I think we follow that, what Vivek has picked up. I think that's, I don't know if that's an Indian thing, but yeah, we do tend to do that. Okay, last two questions. Okay, we have,
Okay, I'll keep my answers precise.
right at the back.
Like I told you, I read multiple books every time. So as of now, I'm reading one on, so I listen to Audible every day because when I walk, that's my time to listen to an Audible book. I read a paperback, and I'm equally good reading a Kindle.
So I was just wondering, 1 week per book is like.
Yeah, that's how I find time. So I read multiple books, and I skip across books. So I may not read one book at a time, but I end up reading 3 to 4 books in a month. So that's how it just boils down to a book a week.
Thanks for asking.
Yes. Hi, Amit. This is Archana. So you're in a forum with so many coaches right on this floor, ground floor. And as a CEO, what I'm curious to ask you is, agnostic of the designations, what are some things you would not want to see in a coach? If you were hiring a coach for your organization, agnostic of the designation, and if we all came with the same credentials, what is something you would not want to see in coaches?
In coach for me or coach for the others?
For your organization in general.
For my organization. Actually, I personally believe people should select their own coaches. I would never assign coaches if possible, but it's not an ideal world. It's a tough one, but see, in the end, there has to be a comfort and a chemistry between the coaches. It has to work out. You have to get into a room and feeling this is the person I can have a conversation with. So some things that I look for in a coach is the ability to have a conversation, right? If you don't have that ability to have a conversation, then no matter how good your resume is on the paper, you're not cutting it with me at least, or for my team, right? So that's one. That's a very important trait. Second is, how soon are you able to establish that safe space concept? A lot of time coaches come with saying, oh, I have a book. Imagine getting into a meeting and saying to a CXO, you know what, I coach 5 CEOs of different firms. I don't know whether you're establishing a safe space there, or you're trying to say you are too big for the coachee, and the coachee has to be thankful for having you as a coach. So that whole attitude that be thankful that I'm your coach is something that's a red herring for me. You have to be thankful that this person decided to appoint you as his or her coach. That has to be the entry level when you enter a room for a coaching conversation. That's my view.
Beautiful. Sir.
Hi, Amit. Thank you. See, I wish I'm a coach, educator, and also a coach for 10 years now. Thank you for all your very, very insightful answer. My response was to the previous question, I think Vivek from there. And also I have a request for Magda here. Magda. One is, Vivek, it's a business problem. Let us not look at it as a coaching problem. The fact that I think we educators are not doing enough on creating that business opportunity is part of the problem. And we get so enamored by touching lives and coaching people that we tend to ignore the business side of it and the marketing side. And the request for Magda is, somewhere coaching education has to bring in this. I think our curriculum is approved on coaching framework, 80% on competencies, and 20% we have the leeway. Perhaps we need to bring in the business side, because most of the leaders who come in do not have the P&L experience. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, with that question, we
There's
close.
no questions. Are we giving one question chance?
Oh, is there another question?
Is there one? I'll give one chance. That's my prerogative. Yeah, the lady there. She's been raising her hand for long.
So I would want you to envision, if you spoke about nicheless coaching, right? If the coaching is without niche, there are no sales coach, executive coaches, what barriers or what is it that could come in between when an organization is choosing the coaches? So this is into the future. If you were to envision that, how would you see it?
That's a very interesting question. I haven't thought about it. So give me 30 seconds to just kind of go through that. Into the future, no barriers. How would we choose a coach? I think, coming back to that whole point is you look at the person who's a coachee, say what is the need that this person has, and as per you as an organization, who are the people who can help that person overcome that need that you want that coaching for. And then give that person a choice to meet 2 or 3 people and say, we are good with these 2 or 3 people as an organization, you select one, whoever the one that you want to, and meet all 3 of them, and then let's have a conversation, why do you need which one as a coach? And help that person arrive at that coaching relationship. I typically do that and say, I'll give you 2 options, talk to them, I'm okay with both these 2, and then find out which one do you want to go to. And it's not my call, it's your call, but we'll talk through why you want this person as a coach and why not the other person, and help that person arrive at a decision right at the beginning, irrespective of whether that person needs a business coaching, an executive coaching, a life coaching, a relationship coaching, whatever. That call should always be there. And I think that's where we need to go, rather than saying we've empaneled a coach and now let's look at, that coach coaching all. You can also do that. A lot of people do that. But then, it's very different, so yeah. If someone like Magda was coaching, I would say get her and then coach all 5 people, right? So I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Bhavna. And I think the case for cross-cultural coaching comes up here. And that's one of the initiatives Bhavna's working on. Not getting too close for comfort, because then we are landing on the same blind spots. So, and if you want to be challenged, then we can cross boundaries. Amit, thank you so much for your very fluid and reflective and candid answers. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'll hand the mic to Krishnan for a vote of thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Well, it's a privilege to offer this vote of thanks to a dear friend like Amit. I've known him for 20 years. And despite his global, nerve-wracking schedules and calls, he still made the time. Thank you, Amit, a lot. Thanks, Amit, for that awesome CEO perspective, starting with your own journey. And you made some very, very pertinent, thought-provoking issues where CEOs fail, where the rubber meets the road. And I think as practicing coaches, we'll keep that in mind. I think there's a lot of food for thought there. Thanks, Kenneth, for that adrenaline-pumping introduction that you gave. I think it all got us on the edge of our seats. And thank Suparna for that amazing conversation with Amit. And you wove in the conversation with the audience and him so beautifully. Thank you so much for that. So I'm requesting our global CEO, Magda, to just hand over a token of our appreciation for you. And thank you so much for making the time.
I was supposed to actually meet you on Monday with Gaurav. I was supposed to say come and meet you, but...
Yeah, I'm coming. Just have a look at the camera.
But I will tell him that I did finally get to meet you. It's been a pleasure.
Amit, can we request a selfie, you taking it with every one of us and sharing it on LinkedIn?
Then we should go to
You want my 17-year-old to tell me I don't know how to take selfies? Come then.
Okay, then we'll have to go to the other side.
Selfie to मेरे पे. Sorry, I'm going to use it. Where's Krishna?
Yeah, here. Can you see me?
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully.
Bridge the gap.
Lunch. So thanks, Amit, once again. And we are now breaking for lunch, 1 to 2, downstairs behind Silver Oak. And at 2 o'clock, we have Ajay Arora here. He's the Senior Vice President Strategy of Hero Group. He's a marathon runner. He runs all marathons from Chicago to Munich to Boston. And he runs his own marathon academy. So he's going to talk about preparing for marathon, lessons from marathon, and and the learning for leaders and coaching fraternity. So that is Ajay Arora after lunch at 2 o'clock. So 1 to 2 we have a lunch break.